Back in October of last year, I ended up in hospital in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia. I've mentioned that I have been going through an insurance claim and I've posted some updates on this channel, and today I want to bring you up to speed as to where I'm at. It's Friday the 20th of February now, so it's been 4 months. I paid just over £13,000 in medical costs for what I can define as 3 episodes, and today I can share with you where I'm at in a little bit more detail. This has been an incredibly mentally challenging number of months. I have insurance that protects both Yvonne and I for medical emergencies and for exactly the situation that I found myself in. However, the reality of dealing with it has been very much different and incredibly eye-opening, as well as mentally and physically draining. 3 episodes. In the 9th of October, I had to undergo emergency surgery for a serious kidney infection. I ended up in hospital for a number of days and I went through that procedure. I then had a second episode where I was to be readmitted to hospital for a second surgery to remove a stent that was fitted during episode 1. The stent was fitted to drain my kidney, and then there was to be a gap period to allow my body to recover before I could go in for a second surgery. After that second episode, on the 27th of October, I was released from hospital again to go into a recovery period before I was then scheduled to have a final procedure that would remove the second stent that was fitted, and that would draw close to this. So that would be 3 separate medical events, all deemed as emergency treatment. Now, on the 3rd event, before that would happen, I would end up with sepsis, which is a life-threatening blood illness that can kill you within 24 hours. And I was admitted to hospital and treated. Following all of that, without going into every level of detail of all of this, I had engaged with the insurers from the very first day, from the very first incident through till today, really. And I'm not going to go into every bit of that detail because that will be for further down the line to really bring to life exactly what happened. But I can tell you that from the 7th of October, which was the first day that I fell ill and contacted the hospital and the insurer, to now, the handling of it and the treatment of it and the paperwork has just been relentless. And so, to bring you up to some kind of speed, on Christmas Day, I received communication from the insurer that they would deny all of episode 1, episode 2 and episode 3, and they would categorise it as pre-existing. Now, within the terms and conditions from the insurer, it states that on signing up for the contract for the insurance, you must state if you have any medical conditions within 2 years, and I disclosed issues that I was having, so all of that was known. So my claim was declined on the reasons of pre-existing. However, the hospital here in Kuala Lumpur deemed it as a medical emergency, and within the terms and conditions of the insurer, they actually state that they do cover pre-existing conditions, regardless of the status of them, when it is a medical emergency. So I had to submit a counter to the first claim, and in early January that claim was also denied. Now, in each of these denials, the insurance company said, log on to our portal and you can view the reasons that we've given you. When I logged on to that portal, even today, there's no information on it. It's completely blank. It just says active case. Doesn't even say declined. I then subsequently followed up with a level 1 appeal to challenge this. And my level 1 appeal, some days later in mid-January, was declined. And following all of the procedures with the insurance company, I then submitted my final level 2 appeal, and I broke down episode 1, episode 2 and episode 3. And I can tell you this, I have had to provide litigation level evidence, information, documentation within that complaint. I filed the level 2 appeal as a medical complaint covering episodes 1, 2 and 3, but also a general handling complaint of the entire process from start to finish. And the insurer quickly acknowledged that they would investigate and come back to me. And on the medical side, it would have to go to an independent board of medical reviewers. And on the internal complaint, they would come back to me within a number of days. Like much of this case, like much of this complaint, they've missed every single deadline that either I have set or they have set themselves. On many occasions, they stated, we'll get back to you within 5 days, and that would come and go. And that happened time and time again. And on this final appeal too, they stated, we will respond back to you within 10 days. And even that was missed. I had to follow up with them. And at that point, they came back, and on the complaint itself, they decided to uphold my complaint and agree that the handling was not adequate from an insurer. But no compensation, no other acknowledgement other than a letter to say, yes, we agree with what you've said, the handling has not been done well, and we will conduct an internal review. End of case. End of case regarding the handling of this claim. On the medical review, they didn't state a time for that to be completed. And in the end, I had to follow up in February, beginning of February, and ask what was happening. And I was issued with a letter to tell me that based on the evidence and the findings and everything that I had prepared in that litigation ready pack, they had overturned episodes 1 and episode 3. However, they were still denying episode 2. So episode 1, admittance to hospital under emergency circumstances requiring surgery immediately, they agreed. On episode 2, where I then had to revisit the hospital to have a stent removed, they agreed that it was medically necessary for that to take place. However, they denied the case based on that I had to book the surgery, and therefore they deem it as elective surgery. So even though the surgeon had to give me, I think it was about 10 days of physical rest from surgery 1 to surgery 2, and they scheduled a date, they agreed that that was medically necessary because I had a physical stent inside my body, inside my kidney, that had to be removed, was medically necessary. They deemed it as elective surgery and declined episode 2. And on episode 3, where I contracted sepsis, they finally agreed after multiple complaints that yes, that was medically necessary. They then stated how much they would pay out and anything that would be retracted or removed from those, because even though I submitted clear invoices for episode 1, 2 and 3, they reduced the values of episode 1 and episode 3, and to this date have never stated what they reduced. I then had to challenge that, and they said, oh, we've made a calculation error and will now agree to pay it. They then said we will pay this within 7 to 10 days. 7 to 10 days passed and no payment came. I then had to raise another complaint, of which they said we'll now pay it within 5 days. 5 days came and went and no payment. And then ultimately, yesterday, I received some money back. So let me very quickly state what that looks like. Episode 1 should have cost, in pounds, £3,925. Episode 2 cost me £6,908, and episode 3 cost me £1,556. So in total, including charges on my credit card and exchange rates and everything else, £12,283. They came back and said they would agree to pay £4,700. I then challenged that again through multiple comms, and they then settled on £5,390, and I was paid that yesterday. 4 months of mental stress. And I'll say this, every email communication that I have received has been delivered to me at between 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning, and it's meant that I have operated for the last 4 months on very, very little sleep. Mental exhaustion of making content, trying to live my life with Yvonne still dealing with her redundancy from her job over the last number of months, and still just trying to live. So I haven't shared any of that until now, and this is the video that I'm telling you what happened. This is for viewers who have followed this channel. I am now filing arbitration against episode 2 to challenge the decision that they have confirmed it was medically necessary. The surgeon who performed the operation confirmed in writing that it was medically necessary, and that the denial is based on the fact that the surgery was booked at an ahead date and deemed as me choosing elective surgery. That's where I'm at. I appreciate everybody who's followed along with all of this. I held a Zoom call with some Patreon people yesterday, and Marina, who's been following this channel for quite some time, asked me how I was, and I genuinely had to choke back tears to answer that, because outside of just posting videos on this channel, this has felt like the battle of my life at times. I wish I could show you the documentation. I wish I could show you the comms. That will come down the line when arbitration is completed and I can give you the total story of all of this. But that is it. Tomorrow, the next video, I'll feel mentally freer from everything that's gone on. That's it. Have a good day.